Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog Season 2, Episode 11, and I'm recording this on Thursday on my lunch break. Um, yeah, the patch has just come out. I woke up very early this morning. I played 5 games, went 3-3-4-3-4. So at least I'm plus LP. Um, and yeah, I've been trying to at least keep an eye on things, even though I'm really not supposed to. And in fact, so far my morning has been, here's all your work you're going to have for the next month. So I don't know how much more I'm going to be able to look at live. I'll do the best I can. But anyway, about the patch, generally the patch moved a lot of things in the right direction. But generally, from what I'm seeing, there's still a couple things that are off. Here's my high level take from what I've seen. And again, this is one day, so bear with me. And I'll be honest, I've been trying to struggle to. I've been reading a lot of overreactions, and players are doing that thing where they say everything's going to be OP that we changed, and then the two things that actually are, they get to go, see, I told you so, ignoring the fact they got all the other ones wrong and everything like that. But, but here's my read on it. Noxus, despite the fact we buffed like everything about it, actually is like fine to weak. Might even actually like I doubt we're gonna see that much of it, but like it seems playable now, which is good. Certainly from tempo, it seems pretty good, and with the augment, it seems quite good, so that's good. Zaun is in a weird spot. Zaun is actually like really, really good early. Multiple games I've been 100 health 4-1, 4-2 playing around Zaun, but it falls off a cliff. 7 Zaun is a bait. And then, that's doing quite well. Singed seems playable. Singed being playable opens up the frustration again when people's carries move chasing him and they get very sad. So we're going to have to deal with that problem. Bilge, I think, is, if I had to pick like one miss so far of the patch, Bilge still seems, when played at the highest levels, still seems too good. I think the misfortune buff plus the factor spell can't miss now, which is good. I think that has made their end game pretty solid. I don't think the Graves nerf was that big, and I think we knew we went light on it, but Captain's Brew is still a very, very good item, which allows you to snowball pretty hard as well. So overall, I think Bilge is just still ahead. Plus, it didn't help that the 30 to 35, but that wouldn't have moved the needle much. But yeah, Bilge is still quite good. Ziggs is obviously the one that called this one, where people are overreacting to Ziggs' damage meter being very high, but at least it got them to play him. And now the combination of like the Ziggs Rise comp, if you can get to that, definitely seems like one of the best comps for sure. If you told me Ziggs is a little OP now, I'd believe it, but only a little. I don't think we like super overshot Ziggs or anything like that. Let's see what else. Oh, T-Hex. I want to get a game in of Piltover. I've seen people doing the loose streak forcing of T-Hex, which is garbage now, which was the intent. Like, that's not supposed to be good. But I need to actually play a real Piltover game like I used to before it got popular to see if it's actually as weak as it is. To see if that was an over nerf. Tryndamere, I kind of expected to be an over nerf, although from what I'm seeing, it still can actually do okay from the right high roll spots, but definitely needs that Ash buff to go with it and things like that. Diana actually is finding a couple of use cases. Just again, you can't force her, and that's the thing. A lot of the like old things people used to force can't be forced anymore, so therefore everyone says they're bad. Is where we're at with a lot of that stuff. Asol, despite that giant buff, didn't really move, which is good. He's getting a rework next patch anyway. The rework looks a lot better. You can actually put other items on him, thank God. I think the only other hot topic is the emblem augments. And this one's weird. This one, I want to see how it develops, because I dug into our data pretty early, and the emblem augments all seem fine to bad. And let me caveat that with, if you look at the top 1%, and the sample size is really small, so you have to be careful, the emblem augments are like slightly above average, right? Like, they're definitely good. They're not OP, they're just good. But if you expand it to any other elos, then they go back to like bad to turbo bad. So my belief right now is if these augments, like if you told me a lot, like a couple emblems in particular overshot, like Demacia emblem, or if you told me like actually instead of 20 AD it was supposed to be 15 AD, like we're at that level of granularity where it's like we might be a little off. But what I can't explain is like why every challenger player is like buying all of them. Like I've seen a couple people keep showing me screenshots of people who take spreading roots into trait tree, and it's like, well, it's definitely not that good. Now, the one we did miss was World Runes. I know we nerfed it a little, but we did not nerf it enough. World Runes is probably out of control. And, you know, I've been calling it the trait tracker of the set. That still holds true to the point where I'm gonna say it again. Personal opinion here is that like maybe much like trait tracker, it shouldn't be in the game because in low elo it's bad and hard to use, and in high elo it's broken. And I've seen at least 2 challenger players ask for it to be hot fixed out. You know, so. But like I said, overall what I will say is it's change, which is good because players have been wanting change. It's more things are viable, which is good. So it's definitely positive. But yeah, definitely had a lot of people who liked forcing their lines and can't anymore have been very angry at me on Twitter. But you know, that's fine. It is what it is. Like I said, it's part of my job. So yeah, overall, I'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it goes. You know, it's Thursday today. People are like, is there going to be a B patch before the tournament? No, we couldn't even if we wanted to. Like everything came in hot already. Not a chance. So this is what people will be playing the tournament on. I expect to see a lot of Bilge and Ziggs Ionia or Ziggs Rise because those are what are currently perceived as strong until someone releases a guide how to play Volibear super good, you know. But you know how it is. Everyone will latch on to the first thing they can find the answer to, and right now that is Bilgewater and Ziggs. Though, like I said, the Bilgewater one I actually just agree with. I think Bilgewater is going to stay one of the dominant comps of this patch. I think that's just true. So, yeah, that's kind of my initial read. So, all right. Admittedly, I'm also running out of questions. So, if you guys don't post questions, these Walk the Dogs will end up a lot shorter, which is fine with me, I suppose. But here's the questions for today. The first one, why are so many of the unlock conditions so samey? You know, we have interesting ones like Silas, but a lot of them are just like star levels. Why are they so samey? Why didn't you do more interesting things? And what happened during development to get it to that point? So this is an interesting question. If you pull up my original, like very original draft of this set with the unlock conditions, what I will tell you is a lot of them were actually much harder. The initial version of the unlock mechanic, we tried things that required, like, you're gonna laugh at the 2 death caps, but like Aatrox, for example, originally was literally 2 Bloodthirsters, not Omnivamp. Skarner, I remember being quite a bit harder, and was something like you had to have a bunch of armor on 2 units or something like that. And so what actually ended up, because our initial belief with the unlock system was like players will enjoy doing these hard quests, right? These sort of quests that they need to complete, and they'll do them, and that will be kind of fun and add a new layer. As we play tested, we were like, the unlock system's doing good things, but what we're actually finding is that like a lot of the times you'll be in this spot where you're like, I really want to play Skarner, I really want to play Aatrox, but I just can't, right? Like I didn't drop enough things for BT. They're just out of my control. And that sort of denial of being able to go down a route that you wanted felt really, really bad. And so what happened was over time, we actually kept making the conditions easier and easier and easier. So that it was like, if you want to play this, you can. You just need to jump through this one small hoop. And that's actually a change that happened throughout the set, was they went from difficult quests that we want you to complete to a small hoop to jump through that says you want them. Because the other end of the spectrum, which we did run into a couple times, was the oops, you accidentally unlocked things that you didn't mean to. And when we ended up in that world, this happened especially with Yordle, the whole system felt meaningless. It was just like, I'm just playing the game and things are randomly unlocking. Feels bad. So we learned that that also wasn't good. So we kept trying to find the line between just a small enough hoop that we want you to do, but not so small that you just do it accidentally all the time. That was the challenge. At one point, I even told Julian, I'm like, if players could open a menu and press a button to say, I want Skarner in my pool now, that would actually probably be okay, So definitely that was what ended up happening. And so from there, the other limiting thing we had, by the way, was we couldn't do or conditions. So using Volibear as an example, we originally had Volibear as we wanted him to be like play 4 Bruiser or 5 Freljord. But we couldn't do that because we didn't have or conditions. So then it was like play 6 of Freljord and Bruiser. But that ended up feeling weird, and a lot of the times you would just activate it accidentally. So we kept going back and forth on some of those because of those or conditions. Oriana is one notoriously that we kept trying different things and really didn't like anything we found, because you would if it was too easy, like play 2 Piltover, you were unlocking her accidentally all the time because 2 Piltover was great. But if it was too hard, like it frankly is on live, then it's like you can never play Piltover because even just getting Oriana is hard enough. Which is actually why next patch, I believe, we're making her easier. But that was this thing we ran into, is like in our attempts to make things easier to unlock, we ran out of suitable conditions that were simple enough. And so that's why a bunch of them end up being things like star levels or, things like that. And so we only did a couple unique ones. We tried not to do too many unique ones because, again, it just felt too weird, and then you'd never really play them, right? Like Asol's a good example where even if he was strong, you can't really force him every game because you need to hit that like high roll Leona and the Taric and stuff like that. And that leads to his play rate being too low. So we limited ourselves to a couple of those, right? Aurelion Sol, Zaheen, Silas. Baron was actually supposed to be about that hard, but clearly economy-wise, we've gotten that a little bit wrong. But yeah, so that's kind of the history of the unlock conditions and why so many ended up so samey. If you talk to Julian, he might actually have a better memory on some of this, because I was oftentimes I was like the input, and it was like Julian would come to me and be like, hey, we found this one too hard, this one too easy. And like, I remember there was a meeting with him and me and Kent where we just really sat down and we're like, we're just going to accept that this one's easy. We're going to accept that this one's hard. And like really had to like finally nail them all down. And that's how we ended up with like the Volibear HP one, that even then I think you end up accidentally unlocking Volibear a little too often, but at least that one's like desirable. So yeah. Okay. Next question. What are your top 3 favorite traits of all time? And the person blocked me because they said you can't do any of the like fortune cash out kind of traits, because obviously for me as a player, I would have said a bunch of fortune and cash out traits. So I spent a tiny bit of time this morning thinking about it. I didn't do an exhaustive search, but I'm actually going to cheat and name 4. In 4th place, honorable mention here. Props to Linda, at least that's who I give credit for this trait. Threat. I think Threat opened my eyes to a lot of important things for TFT. I think was an incredibly important trait. And even though the set 8 execution of it was like fundamentally not quite there, and we had like the oops all threat augments, and like there were challenges within set 8 itself that made Threat like not perfect. But the concept of a threat, I think, was one of the most important innovations that didn't come from me in in TFT's history. And so I think I wanted to shout out that trait because that trait mattered a lot and opened my eyes to a lot of ways to make TFT better. And I think set 16, a lot of its success is because Threat came before it. So I'm going to say Threat as my 4th place honorable mention. In 3rd place, I'm going to go with Form Swapper. It was only 4 units, and I'm not going to say the units were perfect. It took Elise a while to get in the right spot. Gangplank was weird for a while. But the concept of Form Swapper I really love, and is another example of an innovation I think that has been important to TFT, which is the concept of like you have a unit, but in order to make sure the unit is more flexible, giving them multiple roles so they can fill multiple slots. Form swappers, in a way, was extra champions before extra champions, right? Like, if you think of them as like ranged Elise, the unlock condition was play Elise and put her in the back row, and now you have ranged Elise, and it's like, oh, that's cool. I think again, there was some innovation there that I think was really important, of like making units more flexible, having them fill multiple roles, showing that having more things beyond the base 60 was important. So to me, Form Swapper is my third favorite trait. My second favorite trait is one that we've used twice, but it just has an interesting trait because it asks you to play the game in a different way than normal and felt rewarding. And then when it procced, it did cool things and you got to see things you normally don't. And that's Scrap. I really like Scrap. The concept of like spreading out your items so everyone has a component, watching the components transform into a full item value. Getting that shield was cool. If I had like one nitpick, it's like, well, because it's a flat health shield, it's only good early, and it's a 20-second shield, so it's like kind of weird there. Like, I know the 13 version ended up being kind of a weird balance challenge because of that. But I think the concept to me is still one of the coolest ideas. And again, it makes you play your items in such a fun way of like figuring out, where do I get my component value, who gets the best components, things like that. So Scrap to me is my number 2. And then one other honorable mention real quick I'll throw out is Ninja. I think Ninja's a cool trait, like set 1. I think every time we've tried to replicate Ninja's success, it hasn't quite been there, but the OG Ninja, I think, also gets some shout-outs. Okay, my favorite trait of all time, and this won't be surprising, and it's a little bit of a safe answer, but again, I think it does really good things for the game, and we've replicated it a couple times, but the original Guild. I think the original Guild is probably my favorite non-cash-out trait of all time. I think the concept of having a trait that was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that you could go in and out of, you could play like just the Sejuani for health, that felt good. In a way, it's sort of a precursor to like champions with powerful auras, which I think is good. And then when you played it vertical, it made a really unique comp. Like I said, I think we've tried to replicate it a couple times, like Heavenly. Didn't quite go as well. But Guild to me, I think, is one of those things that like we'll go back to this again and again. It does good things for the trait web. And yeah, so there you go. That's my non-exhaustive top 3 traits that I thought about, in the time I was getting ready to do this Walk the Dog. So, all right. Next question's a for fun one here, which is, hey, that shelf you've got there, how did you go about getting it and organizing it, and what's the story behind the shelf? So, like I said, I'll probably do like an office tour video at some point when I have free time. But the TLDR of the shelf here is that I had this big empty wall in my office, right? Like my computer's over there. The wall you guys see behind my stream was over there. But this wall over here did nothing. And originally I was thinking of like putting a TV on it and like maybe even putting a couch here so that I could play like console games in the office. But I felt like if I did that, I was never going to leave my office. And so instead, what I wanted to do, I've had this game collection storing up for years, a bunch of it in boxes because we never actually have enough room to put it all on display. But I finally wanted to get a shelf. So I actually hired a company that does normally like cabinets. They came, measured it, built it, came in and installed it, which was really good. I was really happy with the work they did. And then from there, I have been, I'm one of the again, call it autism, call it OCD, call it whatever you want of me, but I like my things organized. And so for me, actually, once the shelf came in, it was very fun to actually unpack my collection, organize it. I still need to put some of these in alphabetical order, but like the Switch games are in alphabetical order. The NES games up there are in alphabetical order. I also then, I'll show you this. I should save this for the office tour, but I'll show you this. I had a bunch of loose cartridges, like SNES and NES cartridges, but I ordered these like custom cases that basically they're like those old Blockbuster things where they hold the manual and the cartridge because I don't have the boxes for these, but then they have the nice spines, and so those look really good so that nothing's loose up here, which looks really nice. So But what I'll also say is the shelves are looking pretty full. I'm kind of running out of room. Um, some of the stuff I'm like, do I really need the Xbox 360 games on display? Not really, you know. Um, so, and then also now that I've been getting back into like Magic cards, I've got like my chocobos right there and things like that. So it's figuring out what I want to do with the shelf from here out. But that's fun to me. I enjoy toying with my shelf. So that's kind of the backstory behind it. But this is just for almost 40 years of all the games I've collected and saved over the years, and they each have stories, and so yeah. All right, last question, and this one could go a long time, but I'm going to try to keep it short so I don't sound too arrogant. Because the question I was asked, and again, I didn't bring this up, someone said, "What's your biggest 'I told you so' moment of TFT?" And this one's hard, and I was just reading the YouTube comments from yesterday's video, so I can't talk about T-Hex anymore. No, just kidding. But real talk, I think the first one, the one I always go back to, is an important one in TFT history. I had first joined the team, and I didn't quite have the reputation of like amazing work or anything like that yet. People were still unsure of my impact on the project. Was I going to ruin TFT or whatever after set one launched? Because again, I'd only been on the team for a couple months. And the first thing I did was, most of you will not remember this, but when TFT launched, loot came in these like squares, and the distribution of them was like ridiculously random. Like I always remember, I think it was Kiting is Hard, or maybe it was Nature's, sent me the screenshot where like they already had a Draven with all three of their items done on 2-1 because the item system just gave them all their items right away. Like, meanwhile, other players didn't even have items. And so I redesigned with Linda the loot distribution system using the loot orbs that we have today. And a lot of my superiors at the time were like, this just feels just as random. Players aren't going to like this. This is going to do, are you sure? This really, I don't know that I believe you that this is going to do good things for the game. Well, fast forward, we put it in, and it did very good things to the game. It created the right amount of variance that kept the game exciting and interesting and replayable, while also solving a lot of the fairness problems. And we've honed it more and more since then. But it was a very, very big step. And at that time, in my mind, that was very much a "I told you so" to my superiors that doubted that loot system and the impact it could have to the game. I think that was a really, really important one. I hesitate to talk about the Set 16 one, so for now, I'm just not going to. But someday I'll tell you the Set 16 story about it, and I told you so with that one. I'm trying to think if there's really any others. I mean, there's light ones, but I don't really care about these ones. Like, for example, there was the Brand Street Demon patch where I remember that like we had a nerf in for Brand, and all the high elo players were like, I can't believe they're nerfing Brand. There's no reason for them to nerf Brand. And we were like, okay, we will revert it. And sure enough, guess what that patch was? It was everyone 20 out of 20 Brand. And of course, that was very much a like, I mean, tried to warn you, but like whatever, right? Like that's just part of balance. To me, that's not like a big victory. I don't feel good about that. Because if anything, what I feel bad about is like, should have stuck to my guns. Shouldn't have listened to sometimes it's important to take in player input, but sometimes you have to hold your ground when and finding the right time to do that is hard. And to me, even if that is an "I told you so," it's not really a win because I didn't hold my ground properly, right? I didn't solve that, right? And hell, even the T-Hex is actually the same thing, right? Where like, as much as I could say I told you so that T-Hex was good, I didn't hold my ground and not let it be, even if it was a small placebo buff, it shouldn't have been buffed, and like that's a failure, So I try to look at these "I told you so" moments as like pure victories, and that's why I think to me the biggest one is the loot system at the beginning. So yeah, okay, cool. That's it for today. I'm gonna head back to work. I got a lot to do. Like I said, long meetings today, a lot of work. It's gonna be busy. I'm gonna keep trying to do walk the dog, but a combination of you guys gotta give me questions, but B, my workload is very quickly scaling to the point where I'll do my best. but I also don't want to burn myself out. So if you don't see any videos, don't panic or anything like that. It's just work got busy. So, but I'll do my best. Keep an eye on the Discord. If I can't post them, I'll post in the Mort's Thoughts channel and just be like, couldn't get to it today, sorry. But I'm not gonna like force myself if like I'm too busy. So yeah. All right. That's gonna do it for today. Hopefully the patch continues to go well. I will probably be trying to at least somewhat. I have a birthday party to go do for one of my nieces, but I'll try to watch some of the tournament and hopefully that goes decently. So, all right, cool. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.